with the co-chair of the Biden presidential campaign, Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, who occupies the Biden Senate seat in Delaware. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Senator. We just heard the president say something in his opening commercial of the presidential campaign that you rarely hear. I can't think of another president putting it this way. He said something dangerous is happening in America. That is a very strong message. That's an attention-getting message, and that is where the president has decided to begin.
That's right, Lawrence, and I'll remind you what motivated President Biden to run in 2020 in the first case was the Charlottesville rally, the Charlottesville riot, where a torch-lit parade of right-wing extremists shouting hateful reminiscent of the Nazis slogans, and former President Trump's response to it, that there were very fine people on both sides of that Charlottesville incident. That's a lot of what initially motivated President Biden to run for office, was to say, we need to preserve and protect, we need to save the soul of America. And as you just saw in that ad, the soul of our nation is our commitment to voting rights, to free and fair elections, to the very essence of democracy, something that's been fought for hundreds of years. So he's beginning this 2024 campaign back where our fight for democracy started in the brutal winter of 1777, where George Washington and some brave soldiers camped out even in the very depths of their fight for independence. And then he will go Monday to Charleston, South Carolina, to the Mother Emanuel AME Church, where an attempt at inspiring a race war, a horrific gun massacre in a sacred place of worship, is another moment of reflection for President Biden about the sorts of freedoms that we want to ensure we're protecting for our children and our grandchildren. Later this month, the vice president and president will both be remarking on the repeal of Roe versus Wade and how former President Trump led an effort to take away individual freedoms. There's a lot for us to talk about, but I'm going to be with the president tomorrow at that speech, and he begins this re-election campaign with a lot to run on, but also a lot at stake. Our democracy itself is at stake in this election.
You have been watching Biden campaigns literally your entire life. As a resident of Delaware, growing up in Delaware, you're going to be at his side tomorrow. What can you tell people who don't get to be in Joe Biden's presence? They just see him when he's out there in front of a microphone making speeches, which I think you and I know is a second best version of Joe Biden. The best version is the personal one where he's right there speaking to him. What can you tell people about this oldest president in history running for re-election, and what is his sharpness level at this stage of his career in all the campaigns you've seen before and what you're seeing now?
Lawrence, he's sharp, he's energetic, he's optimistic. He is heavily engaged, both here at home in fighting for and delivering the results that Americans need: better jobs, lower prices, access to more affordable medication, access to opportunity, to a record number of investments in new construction and new manufacturing and new infrastructure, and at the same time, clear-eyed about the challenges that we face. He's fighting for our future. He's led our Congress to make the greatest investment in combating climate change of any country in history. He's led our efforts to fight gun violence, to invest in community mental health, to bring manufacturing back to the United States. Together, we've gotten a huge amount done in the last 3 years. But he's reminding us, starting tomorrow, that the stakes, should we allow former President Trump back into office, are enormously high. The chaos of the Trump years would return. The unpredictability, the assaults on the rule of law, the untruthfulness, and the disruption to our global network of alliances and partnerships. It would be enormously disruptive for us to have Trump reelected. And right now, it's sort of an open question. I'll tell you, in response to your question, Lawrence, that Joe Biden remains the Joe Biden I've known for decades. Compassionate, warm, funny, caring, and concerned about people. Sometimes that's hard to see behind the podium in the posture he takes as president, leading a world that is quite difficult, a country in a troubled world and a divided country in a partisan time. But he remains committed to his family, someone who loves our nation, and someone who's optimistic that our best days are still ahead of us.
There are two campaign challenges in front of you. One is to get that list of accomplishments out there, which is always the most difficult thing to do in campaign communication. The people who don't know it are the most difficult to reach. The other, which is a clearer and easier thing to do in terms of message, is to draw the contrast between these two candidates, both as people and what would happen in the presidency. It seems to be in this first commercial that the emphasis is going to be on President Biden says something dangerous is happening in America. What he means is Donald Trump. That's the dangerous thing that he means is happening in America. That seems to be the easier of the two messages to deliver.
Well, look, we're not going to change people's minds about Donald Trump. The vast majority of Americans have made up their mind. They either admire him, support him, and want him reelected, or they recognize that he is a very real threat to our democracy. I think our goal, I think our president's goal, is to sharpen that contrast and remind people of the stakes. Look, it's easy to be concerned about important things to families day in and day out, the cost of rent or groceries, concerns about savings or about employment. That's the sorts of things that, focus people day in and day out. And we have to answer their concerns and their questions and meet them where they are. But President Biden is also beginning this campaign year by saying, hey, folks, it's also important to lift up our eyes and look at the long term, at what we would leave our children and grandchildren if we were to elect Donald Trump president, and he would continue the chaos that we all saw in the Capitol on January 6th.
Co-chair of the Biden campaign, Delaware Senator Chris Coons, thank you very much for starting off our campaign coverage for this year. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.